Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and listening. And we have Larry on his mountaintop. Hi, Larry. How are you doing?
Hey, Stuart. Just under thunderstorms at the time. We had them all last night, having them now, and supposedly the next 3 or 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, there's something really going on now with the weather, and if people would view the weather globally, they'd see how awful it's really starting to get. And this is just going to get worse. Folks, we're moving into bad times. We're moving into the judgments of the Lord, not only in the United States, but it's going to go worldwide. He's appealing to his people, and nobody's listening, or I shouldn't say nobody, but most people are not. Anyway, Larry, before we get going, elaborate, if you would, for the people, what you want to tell them about your situation and what happened. I mean, we've got the plea for help out there. But I'm sure the people listening would like to hear about what is going on, and how are you going to get out of this dilemma without a miracle from the Lord, I guess I would say, from what I know.
Well, Stuart, I certainly don't have any answers to that, because without a miracle, I don't think we can. We don't have any money. My wife's client died a week or so ago, and I told you about that, and then she went for an interview yesterday. And at the same time, a couple of days ago, we were notified that the house is being sold that we're living in. And so I guess we've got to go, but we don't have anywhere to go. We don't know where to go. Dornette's a Choctaw Indian. She contacted the Choctaw Nation, and they just turned us down. I mean, they just turned us down. So you got a couple of old people here that at a time in history that we shouldn't really be doing this. We got to find somewhere to relocate and how to move. And so it's just a dilemma, Stuart. And I'm not a person to ask for help. It really is hard on me to even ask. I'm just not that type. But I'm just laying it out to the people. And if I know everybody's money's tight and you don't have any hardly, but I don't know what to do other than ask people to help us to, send some funds in if you have it extra or you're able to do it, and help us to get ready and do a move. I don't know where to go yet, but we are really praying night and day about this, Stuart.
Yeah, this is kind of a rough situation when you're, this is what happens when you have I hate to call them landlord, but that's really what they are. And I can remember when I had an office in Menominee, I went outside one day, and this big burly guy comes over, and he says, "You got 1 week to get out of this office." So, okay, 1 week, that's real good notice. As it was a false alarm, but you're at the mercy of these people, and they can sell something out right from under you and not even tell you that it's happening until the last minute, which is what it appears happened here. So, folks, anyway, you've got, I don't know, rental or ownership or what, but we pray that people will even look around in their area and see if there's anything in their area that might be suitable. When you're in a situation like this, it's very, very difficult. Then, of course, you got moving expenses. You got everything else to deal with. So, yeah, we just ask everybody to pray for Larry and Darnett, and like Larry said, it's going to take a miracle from the Lord, and he's good at miracles. He usually does it at the last second, but he usually does it. And I've been a witness to that more than once. So anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know that, we have a brother and sister in the Lord that's in dire trouble right now. So any help would be appreciated, even if it's $1. It doesn't really matter. I know there's that old saying, buddy, can you spare a dime? And that's about where this is at. And anyway, I wanted to get into a vision. I think you sent it up, Larry. I'm not sure. I want to read it because it ties directly into one I read not too long ago about a meteor or an asteroid hit that was going to hit off the coast of, I think it was South Carolina or Puerto Rico was mentioned, and we mentioned the fact that the movie Deep Impact was focused on Puerto Rico area in the zip codes for where they were storing all kinds of food and shipping it. So as a result, it actually did fall off the east coast of the United States and, of course, created a huge tsunami. So I want to read part of this because this is another one, another incident, and I'm only going to read part of it. As I was looking down, I heard Miami Beach. The vision left, and I went back into prayer. Again later, while in prayer, a second vision occurred. This time I was standing in a very swank apartment. It seemed to be a high-rise, very modern, chic, and expensive. There were three people standing in front of me. They had drinks in their hands, a man with a close-cropped gray beard, and I believe two women. They were looking up from what they were standing in an area where light was illuminating from. It was daytime, but the light was shining through this location where they were looking up. It seemed to me like he could read my thought because I was thinking, what are they looking at? When he made his statement, he stated, we are waiting for its arrival. And when it gets here, it will cause quite a splash. The woman chuckled. I walked over and looked at where they were looking. It was a huge, flat glass window, solid glass, rectangular and very large. There was something I saw. It looked like the back end of a rocket with four round boosters with a red light. I was perplexed. The vision then went away, and I went back into prayer. I was almost finished. At the end, suddenly I saw out of my left eye vision, it was of what I thought to be a meteor racing down at a high speed from left to right at nighttime. It was very tight-looking light running down almost like a perfect ball. It was on a very direct, perfectly straight angle where I knew in my spirit that there was a specific target. The angle that it looked was very sharp, and the ball coming down was very sharp and precise. I heard it. It will come at night when they sleep. Now, it's exactly what that Puerto Rican pastor had to say, and these other visions have said it's going to come at night when everybody's sleeping, so they won't get a chance to escape. Anyway, I just thought that was, any comment on that, Larry? That's kind of weird to get so many of them.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and there's been a number of people having, being shown things in visions and dreams, and off the East Coast or Puerto Rico or different locations. So, matter of fact, a recent one, not too long back, was in the Atlantic, and that kind of chimes in with Anton Johansson's prophetic word, about something happening in the ocean off south of Iceland in the Atlantic that caused great tsunamis.
Yeah, it's coming. The Bible talks about it. I think one hits the Pacific, and I think one hits the Atlantic. And I'm not sure where the fountain of waters actually is, but it looks like wormwood hits the fountain of the waters. So maybe somebody out there that's a scientist could tell us or email us where the fountain of waters is. Plasma events seem to be increasing. This is Larry posted this one, I think, as well. Naked eye sprite storms. Have you ever seen a sprite? Some say it's impossible. The strange and fleeting forms of red lightning materialize above thunderheads then disappear again in less time than it takes to blink. Yet this week, veteran sprite chaser Paul Smith, he did see them. I've watched a number with my bare eyes over the last two big storms in Kansas. Well, he's got a picture of a sprite, but there is no storm at all in the picture. It's just a series of sprites. Now, unless the storm is extremely far away, and if it is, then these plasma sprites, and that's what they are, folks, they're plasma, are huge, absolutely huge, which indicates we've got some really bad stuff starting to occur in the upper atmosphere. And this is just going to keep getting worse. You can feel it in the sun. Go outside if you can get outside to see the sun these days with all the rain going on. Really, really weird. Anyway, back to the article. Sprites are an exotic form of electricity that leaps up from storm clouds instead of down like ordinary lightning. And although sprites have been reported for at least a century, many scientists did not believe they existed. It's probably typical. 1989, when they were photographed. I said, let's see, let me go down here a little ways. The underlying physics of sprites is not fully understood. Some models hold that cosmic rays help them get started by creating conductive paths in the atmosphere. If cosmic rays do indeed spark sprites, now is a good time to look for them because cosmic rays are nearing space age high. So there you go. Everything is starting to change in the electromagnetic environment. And the sun is still acting very strange. What have you got on the sun? Anything new, Larry? I mean, it just seems weird. We're supposed to be on the downside.
Yeah, and I was going to add to that report about the sprites.
Yes.
They're reporting that it's very possible that the sprites that he was photographing in Kansas were from the storms that were in Oklahoma. We've been slammed with massive storms, and it's very possible that those sprites went up from the storms in Oklahoma, but him in Kansas taking pictures of that is a phenomenal thing. And by the way, huge. And, that's the story. I posted that today about the red lightning sprites. And then also on the report, and I did send you a video about a huge CME off the far side of the sun, which seems to show in that picture by Soho Observatory, it seems to be an object there kind of partially behind the sun in that photograph. Yes. And that's part of what's on now. They didn't talk about the object, but today it reported from space weather, solar wind incoming, set for impact May the 2nd. Well, that's tomorrow. And says far-side solar activity, CME explodes off the sun from sunspot AR 2738, and Soho Observatory photographed it. Of course, they didn't zero in anything around the sun, but you had the video. What do you think about that video? That was very odd.
Well, it's very, very odd. Usually when you have a CME ejection off the sun, they're not circular, and you can clearly see a circular object in there. Not that a CME, I suppose, couldn't look like a ball, but in this particular case, if you look at several of what he had posted, it does look like there's an object there. And then, of course, we had that lady, I think she was up in either Alaska or Canada, and took a picture not realizing there was anything strange that she was looking at. But when she downloaded the pictures, you could see this object right beside the sun very, very clearly. And it was the photograph was taken and analyzed. And it definitely is an object of some type. So, yeah, there's something going on. And then we got this headline, far side solar activity. Yesterday, something exploded on the far side of the sun. The blast hurled a coronal mass ejection over the edge of the solar disk. It's a pretty good size one, too. An expanding cloud was made visible to the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory of SOHO. So there's something really going on now, and the sun is becoming, in its deep minimum, agitated by something. And, some of these things you see out there, I don't buy them at all, because you know what the moon does to our ocean tides. Well, some of these folks are posting objects that are absolutely huge. It'd be ripping the earth apart if they were real. And I'm beginning to think that what they're photographing, I'm not questioning their photographs. I'm questioning what's making those photographs. And I know how PSYOPs operations runs, and I know what the Blue Beam Project said they were going to do. And I suspect that some of this is actually Blue Beam operations and PSYOPs. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention, you remember when I was in Mena, Arkansas, and I took a picture of that object that was coming in, what appeared to be from another dimension. Actually, it was physical, actually.
Yes.
You could see it.
Very physical.
Well, before that, I took another picture, and I think I sent you a copy, and what it was in the picture was a really, really big orb. And in the photograph, it really looked big, while it wasn't. And remember, there was a power line by it, and part. I sent you a copy. It's been years now. But is it possible that what these people are photographing and thinking is something in the sky is really orbs? Because we haven't talked about orbs in a long time, the phenomena of them.
Yeah, and orbs are another form of plasma, usually. If you see a lot of orbs, it's generally plasma events from deep activity in the earth, kind of like the sounds that everybody's hearing. And I personally have heard it. It sounds like, in some cases, it sounds like a big plow on concrete or pavement. That's what it sounds like moving along. And that's deep earth movement. And Larry Parks wrote a book on earthquakes, and he mentions these plasma balls. And when I was an aviator, I used to see what they call St. Elmo's fire, and it dances on the propellers of airplanes. It's beautiful, really, but it's plasma. Some plasma is very harmless, and some of it's extremely dangerous. But it seems like we're moving into an area, you've even reported, where the static electricity is extremely high. And that's another form of electrical discharging, and that means that, I guess, our atmosphere is getting charged higher and higher. And I know the ancients, like Thor's, that fork he has, that's a plasma discharge event. That's what the early cave drawings are all about. They witnessed huge plasma events, probably because there was a close passage of something like the destroyer or another planet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, folks, get ready for the strange. Let's put it that way. Where do you want to go, Larry? We've got what's going on down there in Venezuela. Let's go there first.
Okay. Well, it's very interesting, and I think you've watched some of the video on Fox and Fox Business, and I've watched it on One American News the last couple of days. It's a very strange, situation with very little news coming out, but what is interesting is the fact that Maduro's still not going. Now, they did have a report that, I can't verify it, but Fox News put it out, said they had information that Maduro was about to leave when this first came down in Caracas, and, Guaido was having his people and even some of the military going over to Guaido That was yesterday when, they began to run over some of the, protesters. There were reports that there were Cubans that was doing the shooting at the Venezuelan people and also running them over, and I'm sure you saw some images of that. And then reportedly, as Maduro was preparing to leave, the Russian mercenaries reportedly surrounded him and told him absolutely not. He's not going anywhere. And so he's kind of under house arrest in his own palace is the last word that I got. And I've got another story when I'll get your comment, but then I've got another story that seems to dovetail in to why Russia might not want the U.S. coming into Venezuela and them losing any access to Venezuela.
Yeah, I think it was on YouTube. Some guy reported some of that stuff, and he said that it was the Cuban authorities that are actually overlooking all the generals, and Cuba is virtually in charge of Venezuela, and of course with Russian and Chinese help. And as to why we waited so long, well, I don't trust anybody in politics. And this is what we're watching. We're watching global deep state politics, and it's an energy war. It's all about the oil. Venezuela has the largest oil supply in the whole world, they claim, and of course Russia and China have invested millions and millions of dollars there. They're not going to give that up without a fight. So Pompeo says, well, all the options are on the table, and we'll go to war if we have to. And I think personally it's all bluster. I don't think they're going to go to war. But anyway, what was the other thing you said you had?
Well, the other report that came out early this morning from Sun News in the UK was detailing a headline that Russia secretly had installed nukes or nuclear missiles in Venezuela. And, I called you and told you about that, but then I dug and looked, and I began to find a lot of locations of reports on it, anywhere from Fox News to even now it's a headline on the Drudge Report. Let me read the data on it real quick.
Yes.
Get your comment.
By all means.
Russia secretly installs nuclear missiles in Venezuela. Chilling echo of Cuban Missile Crisis, and that's the Sun in the UK. Says Russian nuclear missiles are now a direct threat to national security of the United States. And I did verify where some of the information is coming from, and I'll give it now. Reported to Tucker Carlson on Fox News, this report of Russian nukes in Venezuela released by a Republican. It's released by Republican Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart. And he is saying that he has the information on it and has released that on the Tucker Carlson show on Fox News. But it's being kept really close under kind of a quiet umbrella. But Fox has released it, and now Drudge Report's carrying a headline, so people can judge for themselves.
Well, I wouldn't doubt it at all because, after all, Russia, China, Cuba would love to have a staging place, would love to have nuclear missiles down there. And that sort of, in a way, goes along with that prophecy where you saw missiles coming up out of the Gulf, out of the Atlantic, out of the Pacific, out of the Arctic regions when America was finally attacked. Remember, he went up on the Empire State Building. Can't remember his name. And very famous vision, anyway. Yes.
Valdez, wasn't it?
I can't remember the name at all, but it sort of matches that. And I wouldn't doubt it all because they may have been flown in actually by those bombers. Even if they did, if Deep State, this may be part of this is what is really worrisome about this. global deep state wants to take the United States down. They can't have the New World Order without the United States being destroyed, basically. And they said that early on, and I think I even put that in the report from Iron Mountain, Blueprint for Tyranny, that was that many years ago, that they had said that if the United States would not peacefully go into the New World Order, that they would be forced into the New World Order. They would not hesitate to nuke a dozen cities and kill millions and millions of Americans to get the New World Order up and running. These people have no conscience whatever. All they have is an agenda. They're walking computers. One could hardly call them living entities. They are, but their conscience is so seared that they could care less if they kill millions. They love it. They think this is wonderful. And, of course, you have that phrase in the Bible, those that hate me love death. Well, where are we with abortions? Where are we with deep state? Where are we with all these false flags that kill hundreds and hundreds of people? Those that hate me love death. God's going to deal with these people. They probably don't believe in God at all, and they think it's all a big joke, but they're going to find out it isn't. I don't know what else to tell people. If you tell them anything, they say, well, you're just hallucinating, you're mentally off, or you're this or that. Anything to deny that there is a creator out there who has a spirit that has a set of standards, and they don't want to adhere to those standards. Psalm 2, let us break their bands asunder. They don't want to adhere to any of the Lord's standards. And right now in Congress, I think when we witness some of this stuff with Barr, my word, how they undermined and treated that fellow. This is ridiculous. And the American people are putting up with it. And that's the thing that amazes me. Why the people of America haven't risen up and said, this is enough, and put these far-left communists in their place. But they're not going to. I really don't think they're going to do anything about it. What's your take on that part?
Well, I'm still watching. I tell you what has concerned me so much is the fact that Trump really has so many traitors and still Muslim Brotherhood people under him in all the organizations of intelligence and even the Pentagon, that I don't even know how he operates from where he's at all.
It's a wonder he's still alive.
Yeah, all the odds are pretty much against him, and we're watching this. Barr seems to be a pretty good level. He seems to, want to do the right thing, but now you've got a swamp, and I don't think anybody on this planet, especially in America, had any idea how incestuous, if you will, if I use that term, and how deep and dirty this swamp is. It's the most giant sinkhole or cesspool on the planet.
Yep. I had a friend of mine worked in Washington for a while. He's a Christian man, and he said you could actually literally see and feel the demons that are operating over the Washington. And Satan runs this whole thing. A lot of people don't even believe that Satan exists. But if Satan didn't exist, then Jesus Christ was an idiot. He came down here to rescue us from what Satan has done. So if Satan doesn't exist, then Jesus was a lunatic. So they might say they believe in Jesus, but they don't believe in Satan, which is a total, I don't even know what your contradiction, I guess. If you believe in one, you better believe in the other. And he does run this planet. Remember that Satan took Jesus up on a high place and showed him all the civilizations of the world from beginning to end, I guess. Time travel as well. It says, hey, if you'll bow down here and kiss my boot, hey, I'll give them to you. They're mine. I'll give them to whoever I want. Jesus never disputed that they weren't Satan's to give. And people really begin to realize that we are under an alien force. And Satan is definitely an alien force. And we're going to start to see his minions showing up all over the place here in the very near future. And they run. Satan and his minions run deep state globally. They run it. Now, people will never adhere to that. They'll never believe it. They'll say that's ridiculous. They're going to find out the hard way that it was all very, very truthful and that their rejection cost them eternity. But that's their business, not mine. All I can do is tell people, warn people, point it out in the scriptures like you have. All you can do is that's all you can do. There's an old saying that a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still, so there you are. It's like the Democrats. Doesn't matter how many facts you've got. They're still communists. They can't help it. They got that mindset, and that's the way it is. So if we have nukes in Venezuela, this is worse than the Cuban crisis by far.
Yeah.
This guy you said claims also Russia landed 2 nuclear bombers in Venezuela. I wonder what they delivered.
Yeah, that's very true, Stuart. And matter of fact, I saw the photographs, at the airport there in Venezuela. And we do know that, remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, that was created because a Russian location inside Cuba that targeted America with nukes. And here we are again down the road under another president that nobody loves, I guess you could say. And, he's trying to save us, I guess, from ourselves, basically. But, we've got Venezuela, and I saw the photographs of those planes that came in. And we do know the reports that came out of Venezuela before this all hit the fan about how that Maduro had ceded an island there at Venezuela to the Russians, and it became, I suppose, Russian territory, and Russia was in process of building a base there, remember?
Yes. Yeah, and if that's true, that complicates the problem, because if we go in and attack, we're literally going to be attacking Russia, Cuba, China, et cetera, and I believe probably Iran's in the mix as well, probably North Korea's in the mix. They have found themselves a nice little cozy staging point, and so far Trump has done nothing but bluster, and Pompeo was blustering again today. So it remains to be seen whether we're actually going to do something. If we were going to do something, we should have done it a long time ago before all this got involved. Another headline, Antifa terrorism, feds investigating activists that planned an armed rebellion at the border with guns purchased from Mexican-based cartels. What is that about, Larry?
Well, that may kind of dovetail into Obama's army that was going to come in, and it was going to be an army just as big as the U.S. military. Remember what Obama said? And at the same time, you remember in Texas and different locations, they have found huge arsenals of weaponry and bullets and et cetera. And remember during the 8 years of Obama, there were really strange purchases of all kind of ammunition, and nobody knew where it was going. Everybody said, well, it's going to the EPA or the IRS, and I kind of got a feeling that wasn't accurate. I think it was being stockpiled for Obama's army that he was creating.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're right. I think they need a revolution, even if they have to start it themselves, and then they'll probably blame some Christian or something like that, some conservative that did all this, and then the war is on. It's just too bad that America has to go down this way. But when you have a sleeping, comatose people, what do? You go to your neighbor and you talk about any of this stuff, they roll their eyes and they really don't want to talk to you anymore. you're some sort of a lunatic, you know. So might as well just stay quiet and let it happen.
Well, I'll tell you what, Stuart. I saw a really interesting 2016 video today of that. I believe his name is Sundar Sehar or something like that. The minister, and
yes.
he was actually, he had a 2016 word on a video that was titled "Invasion Because of Church Failure." And he actually called it the destiny of USA. And he said in 2016, and now 2016, I guess, was when, Trump was running. He was a candidate. But Sandar, that's the name I'll use for him, Sandar or whatever, he was saying that it was all at that point up in the air, that we would see either the church would repent and actually bring the people back to where they should be, or it would be called a failure of the church that would result in an invasion of the USA.
Well, that's probably very true. I was just reading a prophecy that was released just the other day, or today maybe even. I was looking for it before the show, couldn't find it right away. But where the Lord said, all right, this is what I'm going to do, because you people basically won't repent. You don't, they won't. They won't seek Jesus out. They don't, I don't know what to tell them. Only thing we can hope for is that the Lord preserve those who are really serious about the Lord, and the pew warmers and the liars and the, that are in the churches today, they're in a lot of trouble, and I think the Lord is going to start cleaning house big time. I think we're going to see stuff you'd never believe coming out of the basic church. Before we run out of time here, U.S. military. This is from Sort Your Fall, so a lot of people think, well, that's nuts. Not always. U.S. military begins internal tactical deployment as Trump readies for first high-profile coup plot arrest. Now, this goes along with that, which I consider total psyops of QAnon. I don't believe a word they say. They've been telling everybody that there's going to be arrests every week for the last couple of years, and nothing has ever happened, and then it's another month away, and then it's another month away, and on and on. But what I'm curious about, internal tactical deployments. Now, this is the second article she's written about this. Why would you be massive movements of U.S. military combat forces that American commanders have now categorized as internal tactical deployment? Why would you be deploying troops all over, and particularly maybe around the U.S. southern border, secretly? Well, unless you expect major trouble, or maybe this is directly tied to that Antifa rebellion.
Well,
what do you think?
If you'll remember, Red Elk talked about an invasion from the south, and
yes.
And also, if you will, you remember when I was aware of a military invasion assessment. You do an assessment when you're putting together all your data and preparing for something. Well, it appeared from the talking that I understood was going on, and this was in person. It wasn't, I was being told in person. I didn't hear it from somebody else, that they were doing an invasion assessment because they were preparing for what was coming. So that tells me that they knew an invasion is coming and being formed, but they were preparing for it. And if you'll remember too, Stuart, remember the scattered reports that they said early on in the caravans when they were coming up, from the south, and they were even warning, and there was these rumors, and we know they're just rumors, apparently, of tanks with red stars on them. But remember, some of the people in the caravan said, well, you'll be facing tanks before long that'll be coming from the south. And, I'm wondering, is it possible that the movement from the south of America heading towards the border is really a prepared invasion that links in deep state, the New World Order, Antifa, the Democrats and Republicans that are turned into traitors. And, you know, and what's so interesting is the fact that Stuart, you and I both have seen the images of all of these train loads of tanks and armor and Humvees and all of this stuff being moved. We know it's been going on, but now I guess we're hearing about it from outside the U.S., like Sartafal and others. Inside the U.S., total silence.
Yeah, this is, she says, Ministry of Defense, Urgent Action Bulletin. Overflights. We have that Open Skies Treaty, and we got pictures of them. They just did it. They just, maybe a week ago, they did all their overflights. Says showed massive movements of U.S. military combat forces that American commanders categorize as internal tactical deployment. An explanation MOD experts could say could be true, as these U.S. military forces may be deploying to the U.S. southern border, but that the Foreign Intelligence Service states are more likely related to an equally massive movement of FBI tactical arrest teams in both Washington and New York City, highly suggesting that President Donald Trump is preparing to make a high-profile arrest of the coup plotters who sought to bring him down. Now, that would be very, very interesting because, you know, they're coming after him. They're pulling out all the stops. They're lying through their teeth. MSNBC, and all those are just riddled with total lies, stirring up this trouble. And in my view, and I've thought this for a long time, they're guilty of sedition. And they're guilty, basically, if not sedition, high treason. They're manufacturing all kinds of lies to destabilize the entire government. That's sedition. That's treason. And yet all these people are out running around and nothing is being done to them. Now, whether this is what this is for, or whether you know, like you said, is this an invasion that they're getting ready for, or what is this? This is kind of interesting. And this is coming, I guess, from the overflights that they found this out. So it does have some validity. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, I think you're exactly right. Something is going on, and we're not being told as a people about it. I find it interesting, Stuart, that when Barr was being so closely questioned today in Congress, any questions about a Hillary investigation or investigating anyone else, he simply refused to even comment. Yeah.
There's a lot going on here. He said, well, I'm investigating it, but that's about as far as he would go with it. So anyway, we got about 90 seconds. Anything else you wanted to bring up real quick?
Very interesting. Just I wanted to comment quickly, strangesounds.org. I'll post it tomorrow. They've dug into some mounds in Alaska and have found ancient giants buried in Alaska now. Isn't that interesting?
Very. You know, I interviewed Klaus Donner. He's dug up giants that were 25 feet tall. But see, nobody wants to believe that, because if they believed it, then that proves the Genesis story about the giants is true. And if that's true, maybe the rest of the Bible is true. And lordy to lordy, we can't have anybody believing what the Bible says. That'd be a total disaster for deep state. What do you think? That's amazing. Alaska, of all places.
Yeah. I've never heard of that being reported in Alaska, but it just came out. It was on Steve Quayle's alerts today.
Wow. Fascinating stuff. Well, folks, if you can, help Larry and Darnett out. And we got a link up on Lakegate Blogger. And there's a link here on the show as well. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Heads up, the world is getting more and more strange every minute. Anyway, thanks a lot, Larry, for coming on, and we'll see everybody on Friday or tomorrow if something really breaks. Good night, everyone.